The morning sun had barely risen over the glass towers of Meraven Corporate when something unforgettable unfolded, something that would echo through every hallway, whisper into every office, and live forever in the memories of those who saw it. It began with a challenge delivered like a taunt, tossed carelessly into the air by a woman who thought she had already won at life. No one knew she had just set in motion the most astonishing and humbling moment of her career. No one knew the janitor she mocked carried a secret that could silence a room and reshape hearts. And no one, absolutely no one, expected what he would do next in broad daylight, right in the middle of the marble-floored lobby. The story truly began with Arvian Cruz, a quiet 33-year-old janitor with tired eyes and a gentle posture, the kind of man who moved silently through rooms as if life had taught him to take up as little space as possible. His hands were rough from work, his clothes simple, his world small. Yet behind those calm brown eyes lived a depth people rarely noticed. Every morning he arrived earlier than required, partly because he needed the money, partly because he found peace in organizing the world before the chaos of day began. Cleaning was not his dream, but responsibility had its own gravity, and he had long learned to follow where it pulled. The CEO, Serafina Vale, was nothing like him. At 31, she carried herself like someone carved out of polished stone, sharp, stunning, commanding. Her sleek black suit matched the authority she radiated, and her long chestnut brown hair flowed behind her like confidence itself. People didn't speak to her unless spoken to. She didn't wait for elevators, elevators waited for her. Born into privilege, trained for power, she'd shaped her life into a testament of ambition. Beneath her cool exterior, however, was a woman sharpened by expectations she never chose, pressured to meet standards crafted by voices older and louder than her own. Their worlds should never have collided. But sometimes destiny laughs in the face of logic. It was a Tuesday morning, bright, clear, not a hint of storm. Arvian had been sweeping near the lobby piano, a white glossy grand instrument imported from Italy and rarely played. Meraven kept it there for prestige, a symbol of refinement. Serafina had an investor meeting and walked through the lobby with her team, heels clicking sharply as she spoke. As she passed, Arvian stepped aside, careful not to obstruct. Then it happened. One of the junior executives, an overly eager type, asked Serafina about her rumored talent for classical music, particularly her claim that she once studied at a prestigious academy. Serafina laughed, but it was a tight, defensive sound. "My schedule doesn't exactly allow time for piano anymore," she said. Then her gaze drifted to the unused grand piano, and then, strangely, to Arvian. Maybe it was stress. Maybe pride. Maybe a moment of careless ego. But Serafina smirked, raised a brow at the janitor, and said loud enough for her team to hear, "Tell you what, if he," she nodded at Arvian, "can play Chopin right now, I'll marry him." Laughter erupted. Even Serafina chuckled at her own joke, brushing it off as harmless and impossible. Arvian paused. His heart thudded once, heavy. She had no way of knowing that Chopin was the name that defined his childhood. That long before life dragged him into struggle and survival, he had been a rising pianist trained by his late mother, a music teacher whose faith in him was the softest place he'd ever known. She had believed he would one day play on grand stages. But life, with all its unpredictable cruelty, had swept everything away: his mother's sudden passing, financial collapse, the responsibility of caring for his younger sister. Dreams were expensive, and survival didn't wait for music. He looked at the piano, then at Serafina. The CEO's smile faltered just slightly when she noticed his expression, not offended, not shy, but deeply, painfully calm. Without a word, Arvian placed the broom aside. The lobby went silent. Serafina's team exchanged uneasy glances. Was he actually going to? He sat at the piano slowly, as though touching a memory long buried under dust. His fingers hovered above the keys, trembling not from fear, but from an emotion he had not allowed himself to feel in years. The sunlight from the tall glass walls washed over him, highlighting the quiet strength in his face. Then he began to play Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, Op. 9 No. 2. Light. Tender. Achingly beautiful. The melody floated through the lobby like something alive, something pure, its notes slipping into every corner, every stunned breath, every startled heart. Arvian's fingers danced with grace shaped by years of practice, years of love, years of loss. The music wrapped around him and lifted him, as though the world shrank away and left only him, the piano, and the ghost of his mother's smile. Employees emerged from hallways. Security guards paused mid-step. Even the investors waiting for Serafina found themselves frozen in awe. Serafina herself felt a strange tightness growing in her throat. She had expected a clumsy attempt, an embarrassed apology, something to reinforce her belief in hierarchy. But this was a man pouring out his soul in daylight. When the final note faded into silence, the entire lobby stood breathless. Arvian looked up slowly, eyes glistening but steady. He stood, bowed his head slightly, not arrogantly, not triumphantly, but with quiet respect, and returned to his broom. Serafina was speechless. Truly speechless. Her mouth opened but no sound came. The weight of her careless challenge crushed against her chest. She had mocked a man carrying more grace in his hands than she had ever shown in her entire life. The investors applauded. Employees joined. Even strangers who had wandered in clapped with genuine admiration. But the applause only intensified the guilt rising inside Serafina. That moment marked a shift. In the days that followed, the story of the janitor who played Chopin spread like wildfire through the company. Arvian became the topic of every breakroom conversation, every elevator whisper. But instead of basking in attention, he remained humble, brushing off praise and returning to his routine. If anything, the sudden spotlight made him uncomfortable. Serafina, however, couldn't forget that moment. For the first time in a long time, she felt genuinely humbled. She found herself observing him from afar, not with superiority, but with something softer, something unfamiliar. One morning she approached him near the lobby, her voice hesitant. She apologized, not a corporate apology, not a polite formality, but a real, vulnerable one. Arvian nodded, accepting it without bitterness. Over the next weeks, their conversations grew. Serafina discovered that beneath his silence lived a mind full of depth, a heart shaped by hardship, and a talent still burning beneath the surface. Arvian learned that Serafina wasn't the cold queen she pretended to be, she was someone fighting battles no one saw, pushed into a life that left little room for softness. In daylight, amidst the clatter of office life, something human began to grow between them. But challenges arose. Jealous executives whispered. Some plotted quietly, concerned about the CEO's attention drifting toward a janitor. Serafina faced pressure from board members who thought her sudden interest in a low-level employee was disruptive. Arvian faced those who mocked his place, reminding him that talent didn't erase hierarchy. Yet the more resistance they encountered, the more Serafina and Arvian realized that what had begun as curiosity was becoming something far more profound. Their connection wasn't about classes or appearances, it was about two people who had finally seen each other clearly through the noise of the world. One afternoon, after a brutal meeting where the board subtly warned Serafina about misplaced priorities, she stepped outside to find Arvian cleaning the courtyard area. The sunlight reflected softly on his features, and she felt her heart twist. "How do you stay so calm?" she asked quietly. Arvian looked up, surprised by the emotion in her voice. "Because life isn't trying to hurt us," he said gently. "It's just trying to shape us." She inhaled sharply. In that moment, she realized she had fallen, not into disgrace, not into a scandal, but into something deeply, painfully, beautifully real. Still, fear lingered between them. Serafina feared judgment. Arvian feared being a burden. Both feared crossing a line they couldn't return from. Everything changed on the company's annual charity event, held outdoors in broad daylight, attended by